Welcome everyone to the PYRESWAP show, and I'm assuming and I'm hoping that everybody can hear me on all things. I hope that I'm eligible. I hear we have a login problem, but okay, no big deal. So the point being, and good morning Kiedezo, and good morning Dr. Mac, and good morning Pyre Producer, and yeah, the second thing about bot for IWV is that we are still. I'm gonna speak this out while I'm writing it into Discord, and I apologize to everybody who's not like throttled with excitement. Yeah, is that we are still not anywhere near the actual like designed gameplay. And if you have read the thing in the docs, until you get closer to the amount of variables listed there in the decision making, you are still playing a training wheels version, if that makes sense. So if you do bot it at this time, yeah, that bot will be made obsolete. Okay. Yeah, so what do I mean by that? What do I mean by that? And everybody can still hear me, right? So what I mean by that is that, like, again, if you've read, in fact, we can actually make this a thing. Let me go and look at the docs.pyreswap.finance. So first of all, for those of you who have read the docs, and I'm assuming some of you have, if you go and you look at the long version section here, and we have the IWV risk and strategy, right here in the beginning, you have these factors to consider, right? So you want to think about the quantity of participants staking in the IWV. So like right now, you still have, right, one, if you have the ability to predict the quantity of people and you're not like in the coven, so to speak, we still aren't anywhere near, again, like the actual user base goal, and I mean the minimum user base goal to consider this project like launched. Does that make sense? I'm not trying to FUD myself, but like we're still not anywhere near the amount of, if you want to understand what a market is like a aggregation of opinions. Does that make sense? It's like an aggregation of opinions for people who are actually in the market. We don't have that aggregate of opinions yet. So like the factors to consider, the quantity of participants staking. If you're running a bot, it's like and this is now like a predictable amount to you. It's not the goal for this ever to be predictable. Does that make sense? Like, you might know that it goes up when yield goes up, and you might know that it goes down when yield goes down. Does that make sense? There might be a correlation there, but we're still not anywhere near like our actual goal of awareness and like the conceptual understanding. 2, the size of stake positions. Now again, the channelers changed this one here, right? But I've noticed that people who are botting probably aren't even watching Discord. The people who do bot, it is kind of bullish that somebody actually either learned to watch this game from the docs and they figured out how to bot it themselves, or they just think that like something about the docs is wrong and they're, you know, kind of believing their eyes more of what I'm saying, which is fine as well. A lot of people do that. The cumulative staked amount. You can kind of guess this with the channelers as well, but then also the fact that there's always people disobeying the channelers. This also adds variability, right? The sequence and timing, of course, that's always a good one. The activity known as flogging, right, which is always a good one. Usurping, which eventually will get reinstated back when we actually hit our user base goals. And of course, things like the TWAP thresholds around the game, right? Legitimately, right now, the reason people are botting as well is because they're in a hodl position. Does that make sense? So like people who are like long-term holding Pyre gas, yeah, like because so many people are doing that, it's like, oh, well, I'm going to bot it because I'm long-term bullish, which I guess I appreciate for whatever reason. But the fact of the matter is that this is not really meant to be a token that you would just be holding, especially when you get to the vibratile range. Does that make sense? This entire project is really meant to exist in the vibratile range or around it. So when we're not in the vibratile range, like I know which is where we haven't been most of the time, we're still not really like off the runway yet. Does that make sense? Like the plane might be moving, but we have not like lifted off and stowed landing gear. Do you guys understand that allegory? Yeah, and that still is just like a user base issue. Does that make sense to everybody listening right now? Like the plane is moving down the runway, but like, yeah, until we actually like hit that, whatever, you'll know it when we get there. Okay, large and abrupt changes in pyrogas supply. Now, what you guys might not realize is that there's also been a long time since meeting happened, right? I want you guys to understand in the future, that mead threshold is much closer. Make sense? That mead threshold is much closer. So like when meeting happens, it can completely disrupt whatever somebody's strategy was to play the game. Does that make sense? Because whatever yield you're capturing, right? Whether you're playing short term or long term, because somebody right now, like botting it, like the person who's botting it is in like a long-term thinker position, right? Most people who bot aren't long-term thinkers. So this is why, like, when people brought this bot concern up to me before, I'm like, I guess I don't care right now because we're still not even anywhere near the game. Do you guys get what I'm saying? Like, the fact of the matter is they're only botting it on one chain as well. Does that make sense? Yeah. Like, it would arguably even be easier to bot it on the other chains, but like they don't do that because the gas is too high or whatever. Anyways, I hope that makes sense. Like, so when we talk about like botting the IWV, if you want to have an AI run it for you, like I don't know, like again, this is still the training wheels version of the game. This is still the training wheels version. I agree. I have not given out enough training for us to take the training wheels off. But that really, again, that same training is what we're building for learnpyreswap.com for the sake of concept marketing. Does that make sense, everybody? Does that make sense? Yeah. Like, I'm okay with people being long-term holders and they're botting it, but like in the future, I don't want people to be long-term holders. Like, if you're long-term holding Pyrogas, you would have it in liquidity. Does that make sense? There's no point in being a long-term holder when you're in the volatile range. Like illiquid, like single stake. That's not what this token's for. Do you guys get what I'm saying? Don't worry, you'll see eventually. Anyways, okay. So great news, guys. SORA. Do you guys know what this is? Yes, okay. Oh, well, Rolf, you would love it. Sora is the AI video generator by OpenAI. Exactly, CJ. CJ, we've been here 2 years. Yeah. Yeah. Well, CJ, they also don't make they also, I guess you could say, what this project solved from the get-go was like the whole killable tokenomics thing. So in theory, we have the ability to flex the shit out of that by continuing to surf through adversity that would pretty much be an apocalypse for other projects. I hope you guys aren't worn out or anything like that, because to be honest, we really didn't even start marketing until December 6th, just to be clear. Anyways, on our short form platforms like Instagram and TikTok and what have you, we will now be using, very soon, in fact, I saw some previews of this yesterday, we will now be using Sora AI to make fantasy fiction content. Fantasy fiction short stories, believe it or not. I've been seeing a little bit of content like this from AI video generators, and I think that this is kind of like a pattern interrupt about what we can do. Yes, EJ, brilliant. Nope, Maddie, nope. Literally just fantasy fiction. Yep. Again, like, I'll put it this way. Legitimately, it's more about growing a fucking follower base first. Does that make sense? So, believe it or not, Maddie, a lot of the fantasy fiction that we're even writing, it's not even meant to be, like, explicitly an educational story. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, the person listening to it does not need to think for a second that they're in like a classroom. Do you get what I'm saying? Do you guys understand what I'm saying? Yeah. Hell yeah. Critical success. But the point being here is that, like, how do I describe this? You know, the way that, like, you know, children are taught morals and stuff through fairy tales. They're just told a story that, like, you know, the boy who cried wolf. Do you guys know the boy who cried wolf, whatever? That story? Oh yeah, Maddie. Like, again, I literally saw the click-through rate of fantasy fiction is up in the last 2 years. Yeah. Again, Game of Thrones, Harry Potter, fucking Lord of the Rings. Like, you see these multi-billion-dollar fantasy fiction projects all over the fucking place. Like, there's no, like, you know, don't even get me started. By the way, if you want to think about, like, the value if you want to think about the value difference of System 1 messaging versus System 2 messaging, think about this. Think about, like, Hollywood fiction, I guess you could say, like, dollars versus, like, documentary dollars. Does that make sense? But no, would you guys agree that, like, the Marvel comics, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and fucking Harry Potter, and, like, just fucking fictional stories in general? Exactly, Maddie. Significantly more. Significantly. Let's find out. Let's find out. You think ChatGPT knows? How much smaller of an industry is this? You know what? Brave is not going to be able to find this out. Nope, not that. Not that. Yep. Compared to documentaries. Okay. On average, okay, What is the average of revenue? Okay, so the documentary stood an average of like a little less than $1 million. Did you guys know that? There you go. Okay. Movie genres by average box office gross. Damn, okay. Now you can look at it by genre. Okay, so there you guys go. Do you guys see all that right there on my screen? Adventure, 57 million. Action, 46 million. Musical is 25 million. That's fucking interesting. Horror, 17 million. Yeah. But again, you know what, Maddie? Legitimately, it's not just adventure versus documentary. It's all of these things that are fiction compared to fucking a documentary, right? So it's 6 plus 9 plus 14 plus another 14 plus 16. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, it's all of this. Adventure, action, musical, horror, romantic comedy, thriller, suspense, comedy, black comedy, drama. That's what? That's 9. Does that make sense to you guys? There you go, Maddie. Yeah. Anyways, the point being is that, like, you can still learn things from these adventure, action, musical, horror movies. Does that make sense? But, like, you're not at any point, like, it's not presented to you, it's not framed to you in the way that a documentary is, which you guys can see here is 0.9. So 900 grand is how much a documentary makes, which is pretty fucking crazy. Yeah, there you go. So Kia Dezo, by the way, Kia Dezo has a... Oh, I'm talking about Kia Dezo is doing VSub.io. So we have VSub.io and Sora. We have 2 different AI video machines working right now for short form. Because again, legitimately, you can just get more eyeballs, which you guys can see from these fucking charts. Does that make sense? Right? So if you think about all of the content that we've made in the past, we can think of it like documentary style. Whereas if we just create adventure, action, horror, possibly even some romantic comedy, apparently. Do you guys understand, like, the revenue generation? And I really do mean this as a parallel. Like, if you want to understand how much better System 1 is in money making compared to System 2, it's at least 57 times better. Does that make sense? So the point being here is that you can always add some type of lesson to a piece of fiction. Does that make sense? Arguably, that's the job in front of me right now. LearnPyReswap.com's work continues. Obviously, we're going to get this done the same way we got How to Tell When to Sell done. I want you to know that How to Tell When to Sell, the whole purpose there was getting a minimum viable product launched. We're definitely, like, going a little bit higher effort, higher skill, higher finesse, higher level of editing with LearnPyReswap.com. So just like, I want you to know that when we launch LearnPyReswap.com, it's meant to be at least 50 times better than how to tell when to sell. So I'm not going to like get into what, well, it's hard to describe what 50x would be. But the point being here is that we're definitely taking it that much more seriously. So like, I thank you for your patience as well. Let me see. Okay, so we're using Sora. We got more storytelling content. There is, today is like a neutral day in the markets. Maybe a better design. The design isn't anything wrong. Yeah, like how to tell when to sell is fine. The design, what did you think is a better design? Yeah, what do you think would be a better design? Do you have schematics? Yeah, it'll literally look like this. It'll literally look like this electronic. Electronic, it is meant to look basic. It is meant to look like a pattern interrupt to what you see on Twitter. Yeah. Yeah, it is not, yeah, it is meant to look as boring as fuck. If it looked exciting, nobody would click it. Because you're on Twitter where everybody is just blasting you with fucking neon. The whole thing is meant to fucking be a pattern interrupt. Yeah. If you wanted to like strobe lights or something. Yep. Like, yeah. This one looks like this. Here, you can zoom in on me if you could. So every single page on fucking LearnPyReswap.com will have this format. There will be a video, there will be a button, then there will be this right here, which will be like 4 bullet points, which talk about what you get from watching the video, and then the call to action to the next one. These buttons are the exact same button, and they take you to the next page. Yeah, the initial one will look like how to tell when to sell, and then eventually over, the next 7 to 10 pages or whatever, it will literally shift towards looking more and more like Allegard. It'll look more, well, it'll first start going towards Mercutio font with a little bit of Allegard in there. And yeah, anyways, I'll just show it to you guys. There's no point in even talking about it. But yeah, it looks like this. So there won't be any text copy on LearnPyReswap. Sorry, there'll be a little text copy, but like this much. Think like a bulleted list. Yeah, there is not text copy as a feature on LearnPyReswap.com. It is literally videos. You watch the videos. Anyways, okay. Other than that, let's see. We have AI content. The market looks boring. None of our goals have changed. We're continuing to actually make this happen. Again, I think that a lot of people have trouble figuring out how an exponent can be introduced into a math problem. Yeah, we haven't even started marketing yet. Like, I'm just gonna be honest. Compared to what we know now versus what we know then, the stuff that I was doing, it would have made more sense in February and March when I was like, okay, let's do a Genesis. What I should have done then is just cloister myself and then read 10 marketing books. Does that make sense? But instead, I chose to listen to people who like think they know how marketing works based on what they see as a layman, and that is naturally, I think most projects doing that are the ones that fail. Thankfully, we have unkillable tokenomics, so we're just gonna market with the frameworks by guys who market for the billions, and not like some meme coin that a layman has getting laser pointed with and thinks that that's the next move. Do you guys have any questions? Because I'm gonna end the show because I'm gonna just get back to work. Do you guys have any questions? Oh, I'll talk about this. Okay, have you guys ever heard of a project called Chainlink? Yeah, have you ever heard of a project called Chainlink? Okay, so Chainlink, if you guys weren't aware, the project that we can copy, if we can copy any project for marketing, we can copy the way Chainlink did marketing. Because Chainlink had to do concept marketing before they did product marketing. Make sense? So Chainlink had to create the concept of what? What's a word that you guys all associate with Chainlink? Correct. Exactly. Correct. So legitimately, they had to do this concept marketing. And I'll explain as well, like I said before. For those of you who don't know, Dr. Mack works as a pulmonologist. And one of the things that when you're a lung doctor you deal with is something called sleep apnea, right? Well, for sleep apnea, they make sleep apnea machines. I want you guys to understand something, that like, in order to effectively sell a sleep apnea machine, you have to begin by talking about concepts first. Like, the person you're talking to has to be led to the conclusion that they have a problem in the first place that needs to be solved. Does that make sense? This is, again, where they talk about sleep apnea, right? We talk about fundamental analysis, right? The people have to be led down a fucking path for them to agree that they first have this problem, right? Then when you propose the actual solution and then explain to them why it is a solution, does that make sense? Which is, again, this is the whole point of learnPyReswap.com. Then they become, let's say, open to potentially taking the risk on a sleep apnea machine. Make sense? Or in this case, PyroPhantom. Do you guys understand what I'm saying here? This is the way you do it. You can't just build a sleep apnea machine and then just hawk it on the street. Does that make sense? Sleep apnea machine. Sleep apnea machine. No, if they don't know. Yeah, Fexer, they have to first believe they have the problem. Yes. Which, by the way, Fexer, that's why people click how to tell when to sell. Because they have the pain point. Yeah. That's why it gets clicked. And Alessio apparently has done data that depending on which way the market's going, that's what gets people to click more or less, which I believe. Yeah. So the oh, by the way, I'll actually preview something here before I end the show. So I want you guys to I'm gonna actually list off something here that I've been practicing for interviews. Okay? For actual YouTube interviews, right? Which you guys are ready for me to go on, right? You guys have been ready? Okay, so before, when I would do YouTube interviews, these would all convert at like 0.1%. So maybe 1 out of 1,000 views would actually be somebody who figures out the fucking project, right? Terrible conversion. So the point being here is that if you're gonna describe something in the interview, you don't feature blast, you don't kill the curiosity. Because like, you're not trying to tell them everything about your project. You're trying to tell them just enough about your project for them to want to take a step towards you. Does that make sense? Right? So not like 15 features, blah, 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 blah. You want to tell them just enough about it where they can understand it conceptually. So this is one of the things that I have written. It's just notebook written. I haven't like committed to it yet. But again, the way that I would describe this is a parallel. Fexer, yeah, it's not that. It's, again, I'm going to be on a YouTube interview that's like 30 minutes long. Does that make sense? But I want you, good news, 30 minutes is still not enough time to explain everything about this project. So really, it's more like I have to have 3 to 4 short stories or allegories or parables that are kind of like, the whole interview is like rehearsed, really. Alessio, I don't think so. Yeah, I think the Genesis idea was literally me listening to people who had no idea what they're talking about. Yeah, because again, what is the Genesis doing? Like, the Genesis is marketing the Genesis. Do you get what I'm saying? I don't think we did. Yeah, but like that's just them showing up for the Genesis. I guarantee you we have hundreds of people that were in the Genesis that didn't do anything for us. Yeah. Like, I don't think, yeah, I think that the Genesis was a good thing for the lesson learned. I would say the Genesis was good for me to understand that I had to take decay off in order to reduce the mental labor of the user base. Yeah. Pyroser, no, the market wasn't the same. Yeah, they don't care about Genesis events anymore. Yeah. I don't think anybody came. There was no hardcore people. Yeah, legitimately, I was getting messages about people that were like, they'll show up if this. I'm like, I don't care. Yeah. Yeah, like literally, like I don't think anybody gave a fuck in the first place. Correct, Rolf. Correct. And like again, the meta isn't there. So like just the same way that Discord stopped working for marketing, Genesis events. There's no like, do you guys get what I'm saying? Do you guys understand? Like you have to not chase what's okay. You have to do something different. You have to interrupt the pattern. Yeah. Instead of me coming up with any of those ideas, which are, again, ideas of people who haven't read a single book on marketing, I should have just read books on marketing in the first place, and then I would have not been, like, led into believing. Do you guys see the announcement thing? The pie charts? Again, it's not this. Yeah. Okay, you don't have an event for marketing, and then your marketing strategy is a slice. You build a marketing strategy with the event as a slice. We were literally, you guys are all talking about it like this. And that was the way that I thought about it as well at the time. Yeah. So it's okay. I'll just go back to what I was saying. You guys should all stop having opinions on marketing. I'm serious. Just stop having opinions on it. Yeah. Until you can market a project to $1 billion, you're not helping anybody, not even yourselves. You are, in fact, commenting on something you don't understand. Yeah. Again, it's like, yeah, like legitimately, so many people don't understand marketing at all. The way that people in Web3 understand it from a user base is even more illiterate. It's like somebody who says, oh, how does a car work? Oh, what a car needs to work is it needs a set of keys. That's not how a car works at all. That's just how a user thinks about it because they see the keys. Does that make sense to you guys? Yeah, like the level, yeah, don't worry about it. Okay. Yeah, but then also, okay. Alessio, the incentives to attract people is not a good idea. Yeah, that is all like, you are thinking very silver medal effort there. Yeah, legitimately, I could have just promoted it. Does that make sense? Like, I didn't promote it before the Genesis. Like, why didn't I just go promote it? Yeah. Do you guys get what I'm saying? You don't need to have a fucking event to market. That is incredibly fucking, that is dumbassery. Again, I thought that way too. Do you know what we're promoting for the next interviews? We're promoting the launch of learnpyreswap.com. Yeah. The idea of promoting an event, like, the event in the eye of the user is like a complete fucking, yeah, it's just not it at all. I can't describe it. I agree. I have, yeah. Oh yeah, no, for sure. Oh yeah, Rolf, in 2017 and 18, I was in fact on an ICO project, and also it's like that was the realization that if you don't have the marketing handled, you don't have it. Yeah, I thought I had the marketing handled when I got 5 Discords, but even then, the marketing meta keeps shifting, and it all has to do with where does saturation happen? Does that make sense? So again, for crypto marketing, again, understand that it's always going to evolve. And do you know why it's always going to evolve? Because so many people are going to be copycatting the products that succeed, that whatever that project did for marketing ends up numbing the user base. So like people got numb to Discord. Does that make sense? In 2022, I personally made 50 million in TVL move from a series of announcements. Yeah, but that was 2022. In 2023, nobody cared. 2024, nobody cared. 2025, still nobody's gonna care. I have to go do something that's not already saturated. You have to interrupt the pattern. More on that later. Anyways, okay. The good news is that's what we're doing now. Yeah, that's what we're doing now. We already have, again, how to tell when to sell was the proof of concept as a cold traffic funnel. We're gonna go drive warm traffic into it. Every single detail of this is now thought out with like actual theoretics behind it and its actual frameworks and strategies that famous marketers teach. Does that make sense? Specifically for online marketing. Again, if your end user is a human and you're on the internet, you can use online marketing like strategies and theories for them. Like it is yeah. There's not something different. The crypto user is not like a not human being. Does that make sense? It's all still, they feel pain. They seek pleasure. Does that make sense to you guys? Right? They seek benefit. They avoid cost. Yeah, anyways. More on that later. So I'm gonna kind of brutally recite here this type of allegory to explain, I guess, what you could describe as, how the fuck would you describe this? Okay, so in order to kind of market a concept, you have to start off with a concept that your audience already understands. So here I'm going to try to draw a parallel between social media as an invention, or should I say content as an invention, and banking as an invention. So once upon a time, social media was invented. And with social media's invention came a worldwide disruption of the way people experience online content. Follow me still. While social media did not invent content, what it did do was make content creation peer-to-peer. It decentralized content. This has led to an explosion in wealth because it made content creation widely available instead of gatekeeping it for a privileged few. Does everybody follow me still? I'm using you guys as a focus group right now. Well, what PYRESWAP does is a lot like social media, except instead of empowering people to become independent content creators, it empowers people to become independent bankers. While we at PYRESWAP did not invent banking, what we did do was make banking peer-to-peer. It decentralizes banking, but in a way that's never been done before in crypto. Now, did anybody lose me on the concept train there? Did everybody understand that whole parallel? Okay, fantastic. Again, I just need to be able to figure out if I'm understandable in the way that I draw a parallel. This right here is something that I'll probably doll up a little bit, but it's one of these kind of sound bites that I have to have memorized. Like legitimately, every line has to be memorized in a sequence, which is, again, me just rehearsing that in the fucking mirror probably. And you're legitimately all you're trying to do is make it clear that you're not doing it the way that Aave did or something like that, or even the fact that the way a Dex did. Yeah. But the point being is that anybody who's listening to me on YouTube, they're going to know what social media did, right? And they probably also know that people make money as YouTubers, right? Meaning there's an explosion in wealth from content creation. So therefore, if they're able to just draw those parallels and those concepts and then say, hey, this applies it to making banking peer-to-peer, then I think people can understand. Let's put it this way. The goal here is to pique curiosity. Does that make sense? And I know that maybe you guys can't empathize with somebody who's never heard about the project before, but I'm just trying to give you guys an example of the difference in how I interview now. Does that make sense? Yeah. But yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to wrap the show up now if there's no questions. Yeah, exactly. It's more emotional because, again, everybody's peaking. Again, they want to be early in on an opportunity. And they also know that there was another thing that made money in the past because it, democratized the ability to be a content creator. But I want you guys to understand something. By the numbers, yeah. Well, and again, that is part of the storyline as well. It's called, okay, by the numbers, it was really we did not even start marketing until How to Tell When to Sell. I want you guys to know that. Because all of the conversion rates from everything we did on the Genesis or AVAX Talk things, or Twitter Spaces, or other YouTube things, it was all how do I describe it? It was just there to be a data set at the end, because the data from that was there to point out a problem, because everything about the numbers should have been working a lot better, and they weren't. Does that make sense? And I didn't understand why. And yeah. The choice to turn off decay was very important at the time because even the people who were already in the project still couldn't wrap their head around it. Make sense? If somebody hasn't read the documentation, so they don't even know that decay has tiers or things like that, they just hear the word decay, they just feel negative things. Do you get what I'm saying? Almost everything that we did in the past was kind of built on it wasn't built on user friendliness. It was almost built on user hostility. Make sense? And We didn't even need to promote like a Genesis. We could have like literally just promoted the project. We could have literally invented something to promote. Yeah, we could have done it to promote active staking. You know, like the fact that you needed to have an event, that's completely illiterate in the first place. The reason people you think you need an event to do marketing in Web3 is because the end user only stares at the event because that's like the fucking ad that he sees getting blasted into his eyes. Does that make sense? But marketing is something that's happening all over the place, but people only see the stuff that's glaringly obvious. Like, oh, that must be what marketing is. And it's just not. That's like, how do I describe it? In America, you have these truck dealerships, and they have these events all the time, like Toyotathon or Chevy Truck Month or Happy Honda Days and stuff like that. And like, that event is not what the fucking product is. Do you guys understand? Like, Toyotathon is not like, do you guys get what I'm saying? It's like okay, nobody fucking buys a Toyota, right? And when people are like, why did you buy the Toyota? It's like, oh, well, it was Toyotathon. Do you guys get what I'm saying? No, nobody like defends the purchase. Okay, I'm not gonna beat this to death because I'm just gonna get back to work. Do you guys have any questions? We're gonna make it. Yeah, we're gonna make it. Yeah, we've literally been. We saw the light in the tunnel for the first time in December. Arguably between September and November, that was when it was dark. But I mean, again, we just fucking fought through it. Yeah. By the way, it still looks like all the charts are still up from September 6th, which makes perfect sense. Yeah. When YouTube Marathon, when LearnPyreswap.com is finished. Yeah, there's nothing to marathon for if we don't have LearnPyreswap.com launched. In fact, I don't even have a conversation to have with them until LearnPyreswap.com is there for me to get feedback on YouTubers from. Yeah. Anyways, thank you guys for coming to the PyreSwap Show. Have a great rest of your day.